when you become a full-time resident, the country will give you access to the national health system.
Hello again, this is episode 2 of our talk with Fernando. This time we are going to talk about health insurance. We are going to dive deep into this topic. Very important for all of us expats to be insured in a proper way. Whenever you have questions, remarks, don't hesitate to post and to give comment on this video. You can also, of course, come into contact with Fernando directly. Follow the link in the description under the video.
Fernando, health insurance. That's another very important topic for all expats. So I have a few questions about that, of course. Once an expat becomes a resident in Portugal, do they automatically have access to the public system?
Hi, Rob. So once again, we're here, another session after having a previous interview regarding house and car insurance. We're here speaking about health insurance, which is probably one of the first insurance need a client has when they're moving or when they're arriving in Portugal. So technically answering your question, again, it's not my field of expertise in terms of residency and the whole process itself, but when you become a full-time resident, the country will give you access to the national health system. Obviously, until you have that access granted by the authorities, that's where people resort to a health insurance, a private health insurance, or they'll probably get a travel insurance from their country of origin. But here we're more to explain how the health insurance works. So that access to public hospitals, public healthcare is granted by the government.
Okay. What is the difference between being registered in the public healthcare system and having a private health insurance?
Obviously, it has mainly to do with cost, obviously. When you register in the public health system, mainly you can go through the public health system for anything basically free of charge, very minimal, unless your medication, for example. One of the huge advantages of being registered in the public health system, is that obviously when you go to get a prescription from the pharmacy, you have a huge discount applied. So that's something very good. And on that topic, medication here is literally peanuts compared to what you're probably paying back home. Mm-hmm. So obviously here the advantage here, or the difference here with the private health insurance, is that you're paying out of your pocket, obviously, and then you can go to a private health insurance and there will be coverages given based on what the policy is covering.
Yeah. Okay. Do expats need a Portuguese tax number and social security registration to access?
The main criteria, what is mandatory to do a private health insurance, is obviously you have an address. Again, the address here doesn't have to be the address you're applying for residency. It's so you supply the health insurance company where you're living, so they can organize themselves. Because obviously, health insurance companies, as they grow, or they have more people subscribing in a certain area, if they have a huge population with health insurance, so they have to make sure they have health providers in that area. So you supply an address, your first requirement. Second requirement, have a Portuguese NIF number, because that's mandatory for everything here. The social security number, as you were asking, is not mandatory. That's only if you're going to start working, so not needed to do the health insurance policy. And then a Portuguese bank account. People say, well, I probably have, let's say, or a Wise or Revolut or a European account, but a Portuguese bank account. It's difficult to get a foreign account accepted, a huge nightmare. So there is sometimes a way to get around it. I've had cases with people who don't have a Portuguese bank account. What to do is that they can just pay yearly, for example. The problem is that you're entitled in certain cases to a refund when you go outside of the network, and that refund has to be paid to a Portuguese account. So it's always useful that you have a Portuguese account. An advice I can give out to someone is that imagine you're coming over, you don't have, or it's difficult, I know it's not easy to open bank accounts here in Portugal, but you have a good friend here or a family member who will allow you to use their bank account. They can collect the money out of that bank account, even if you're not the account holder. They sign it as the authorization, and then they refund the money to their account. So that can be a temporary solution. Afterwards, when you can't successfully open your bank account, it can be updated. So that's a bit of an advice I can give. If someone doesn't have a Portuguese bank account, it's required, is that they can just simply use someone else's account. And then obviously have an email and the Portuguese number. It's important too. Again, if you don't have your own Portuguese number, use a friend's number, so that's for notifications or when you call them, they have a Portuguese number on file.
Yeah. Of course, it's a temporary solution. Eh?
Yes.
Yeah. What are the main advantages of private health insurance in Portugal compared to only relying on the public system?
Loads of opinions out there for this question. What are the advantages, disadvantages, likes, dislikes? It's a huge discussion there. My view I see on it, and I think that I'm Portuguese, I live here, and we live this daily. Our public health system is not the most perfect system in the world. We know it, but certainly not the worst. What we find here, one of the most difficulties a lot of times, is precisely the basic care. Going to a family doctor, getting a basic appointment, doing a checkup, because obviously family doctors are full, there's a shortage of doctors. As I say, if you're involved in a road accident or you have a stroke at this moment, they're not going to let you die. They're going to fight for your life. They're going to get you cruising. They're going to rush you to hospital. That's a guarantee I can give. So I think that the private health insurance is a main advantage, especially for that basic stuff. Going to a doctor, doing a checkup and exams, even a surgery, more simpler surgery there, it'll be probably a bit more faster than going through the public system. Let's imagine we've all been there, change of season, a high fever, a little bit sick, you go into an emergency room full of people, and you're going to get a grumpy doctor saying, well, why are you here? Why haven't you gone to a doctor? Because it's difficult going to a public hospital during the day. Even though now in Portugal, what they're doing is they have the 24-hour health line, Saúde 24, where they recommend everyone calls. They have English-speaking nurses on the other end, technicians, and they can filter your needs and tell you where to go. But if you have a private health insurance, you can walk into a private clinic, walk into a private hospital, be seen a bit faster, and you're probably going to enjoy the experience a bit more with English-speaking staff. There are some situations which are never covered by a private health insurance, and that's part of the agreements the national government has. For example, if you, for example, need to have a transplant, that private hospitals don't cover because the organs, the kidneys or livers, they are donated. So obviously this cannot be turned into a business where you have private health insurance companies trying to buy, let's call it that way, an organ so they can do a transplant. That's left for the public system. So again, for the more critical situations, the government is there to help people out. So I think that a private health insurance helps you with more the basic needs, and even a bit more complex. They're there for surgeries, and for sure a bit more faster. Someone speaking English, you're going to find it much easier to relate with the private hospital. They always have English-speaking staff. On the public sector too. Don't want to. I like to defend my country and the services. We have English-speaking staff, but you're probably going to get a bit more polite the way a private hospital is structured. They know you're paying for a service, and they'll have someone English-speaking to help you.
Do you have an idea? Can you give us an idea about the health insurance cost in Portugal for expats?
The cost, it always varies depending your the age. That's always a factor. It's hard to give figures here. And again, I don't like giving ballpark figures because I've learned that people take amounts too seriously, and sometimes they don't follow up with an insurance agent because, the price he gave was too expensive. We have to compare apples to apples and pears to pears because there's a lot of plans out there, and depending here the coverages. I can quickly give an example. For example, here, let's suppose for one of the most comprehensive plans here on the market here, where it gives you basically 1 million hospitalization and 1 million hospitalization per person per year, and then 5,000 euros doctor's appointment and exams, and then 1 million for critical illness, things like tumors, cancer. For example, let's suppose someone that's 30 years of age. For example, the price here for one person here, I'm going to just quickly do it here. We're looking at something like 110 euros per month, for example. Let's suppose someone that is 40 years of age. Let's do this by every 10 years, so as a ballpark figure. Someone that is 40 years of age, this premium coverage here, 1 million hospitalization, 5,000 doctor's appointment, we're looking here at something like 123 euros per month. Now, someone that is 50 years of age, let's quickly do it here on the system. We're looking at a cost of 140 euros per month. Now, someone that is 60 years of age, and we're starting to reach here a bit of the limit for the age subscription that you can get a comprehensive plan here. but
Right.
60 years of age, you're still fine. 60 years old,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at 204 euros per month. And then finally, someone here on the limit of 69 years of age. We'll speak a bit forward here why the 69 years of age. 69 years of age, you're looking here at a cost of 332 euros per month. There, that would be the cost. Because basically, when you're 70 years or over, you shrink down to almost no options for a comprehensive plan except one company. So basically, that's an idea of cost. This is prices per month for one person.
Right.
Nothing like having a chat with me, asking, or an insurance agent asking for different quotes, so that you can get a comparison. We're speaking here of a top end coverage. On these prices here, I am not including a dental coverage. You can put that add-on of 1,000 euros coverage per year. I think personally, and a lot of times corporate CEOs of the health insurance companies, they don't like the way I say it, but it's a reality to me. I like to do the financial part of it, compare costs and benefits. What you're going to pay per year, for example, let's say to get 1,000 euros coverage per year for dental coverage, you're probably easily looking at an extra 500 or 600 euros per year to get 1,000 euros dental coverage. If you're fairly healthy of your teeth and you just do a regular checkup 2 or 3 times per year, and you, Rob, you've been here for some time, you know how it works. You can easily get a dentist appointment, let's say 40 to 60 euros per appointment. It's probably not worth paying to have the dentist coverage added on. That's my opinion, but again, I think it is what it is. And then obviously, in terms of the specialties, dentist is one of the most difficult specialties that you find working with an insurance company, because dentists are seeked a lot. And once you find a good dentist, I have this, my own expression, you fall in love with the dentist because he works good. Your mouth is one of the most sensitive parts of your body. So if he's good inside your mouth and not hurting you, not causing a lot of pain, you're going to go back to him.
Yep.
You'd rather pay a little bit more fully out of your pocket, even if he doesn't work with the insurance company.
Right.
So on that perspective, you should ask yourself, is it worth adding the dentist coverage on? I mean, on the quotations I send, I include the difference between with or without dentist coverage, but you'll easily reach the conclusion that it's probably not always worth adding a dental coverage if you just go to a basic cleanup 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, sure. About the waiting periods. Are there waiting periods before certain treatments are covered?
Waiting periods or grace periods are always applied. On average, we're speaking here of 60 days waiting periods for doctor's appointment and medical exams to happen, and 90 days for hospitalization and surgeries. What happens during that waiting period, first of all? What are your options? You have to pay fully out of your pocket. If you go to a doctor or a hospital within the network of that insurance company, which normally they work with all the big with all the big hospitals and clinics, you're going to get a small discount, let's say 30-40% off, but you have to pay fully out of your pocket. In terms here, so we can speak a bit here about the hospitals and clinics that work with the private health insurance companies, the bigger ones, all the big ones. Hospital de Luz, CUF, Lusíadas, Joaquim Chaves, Champalimau, one of the most high-tech research hospitals. You have HPA, which is a network of hospitals down in southern Portugal and on the island. So the big insurance companies, they work with these hospitals. But you have this waiting period. And people say, well, but that doesn't make sense. So you're saying that I'm going to be paying for 2 or 3 months of coverage without having coverage? You can put it that way. But why is that? You have to do a medical questionnaire to see your pre-existing conditions. But if you know you're sick now and you start the insurance tomorrow and they were to fully cover everything, that would be a loss straight away for insurance companies. So obviously, here the idea is that you have a waiting period, because if you have something urgent, you wouldn't be doing a health insurance straight away. So that's why you always have a waiting period applicable. 2 other situations we have here: critical illness, which something like cancer is only after 1 year, even though this shocks people, but unfortunately what they say that something like cancer isn't always detected, but there would eventually be signs. So obviously that is something important for the insurance company, that they will only cover cancer treatments after 1 year. And then things like a tumor, for example, after 6 months, a waiting period. And then finally, something else which is important: birth. This is always included standard coverage. I have a lot of especially male clients saying, Fernando, why do I need birth coverage? It's part of the coverages. You can't do customized coverages here. They're part of it. And in this case, obviously for females here, the case of birth is covered after 1 year. During that first year, they won't pay anything related to birth, but they will get a discount on the birth. I've had cases where people coming here 3 months pregnant, they go to the private sector to book the birth, and they'll get a fairly, I can tell you, a really good discount on how much they have to pay fully out of their pocket. But for the fact they have a health insurance policy, they're going to get I can probably say, let's say, I had the other day a client for a cesarean birth. She was quoted at a private hospital something like €6,000, and for the fact, even though she was within her waiting period, she had birth 4 months after she did the policy, but yet she got a discount of close to 1,500, €2,000 for already being an insurance client. So it's always there's always an advantage of doing a health insurance policy.
Yeah. Okay. And how do Portuguese insurers deal with pre-existing medical conditions?
It's a tough situation. They don't accept it. I've been in this for quite a long time.
It's a very clear...
No, I mean, you can. What happens is there's always a medical questionnaire filled in. What I do is I send an English medical questionnaire to make it easy for the clients, and I can trust you that people who have done this questionnaire, basically it's 16 different questions, are going to cover every part of your body. If you have a pre-existing condition, it will not be missed on the medical questionnaire. If you do declare a medical questionnaire, they ask straight away questions like what year it appeared, what treatments were done, medical reports. And always, I have yet to have a successful case where they've accepted that pre-existing condition to be covered. They always go and raise the price. So here in Portugal, there's really only one option here for people with pre-existing conditions. It's a company called MGen. I do not work with them. Or there's a group policy called Allianz Care. But it's not Allianz here in Portugal. It's based somewhere else. A group policy that they're selling here, and those will cover it. From what I've heard, those situations, pre-existing conditions, are only covered after 1 year. During first year, no pre-existing conditions are covered, and obviously, as understandable, the cost will be higher. Even if you say, well, I had a health issue 10 years ago. I've never had any issues again. No reinstating issues. Nothing. I've been clean, I've been healthy, I have a policy that still they will not include it from the first day of coverage. You have to wait 1 year with this company, for example, MGen, which is what a lot of people use it. I have no problem saying it. People who work with me know that when I send the quotations out, I normally send a spreadsheet in English to simplify things, and one of the at the top notes on that document says, note, the health insurance policy does not cover pre-existing conditions. And I have no people saying, listen, go with MGen. They will be able to assist you. You have to check with them. The coverages they give you, everyone knows that on the market. They're one of the best companies for pre-existing conditions because they offer you a solution. Of course, not cheap, because if you are fairly healthy, all the other regular insurance companies, they can easily give you a much lower premium. But when you're with a pre-existing condition, that's the only option, as well as the age limit. Normally, that's why I was speaking of the figure of 69 years of age. Up to 69 years of age inclusive, you can still get full comprehensive coverage here for health insurance. Over the age of 70, you're basically stuck. And of the exceptions is basically this company called MGen, where they accept pre-existing conditions, and there's no age limits for subscriptions. But again, if you're healthy or you subscribe to a health insurance plan, in this case here, until let's say 65 or 69 years of age, as long as you keep on paying the premium, there's lifetime coverage, no problem with that. And if you meanwhile subscribe to a policy, after a few years or 1 or 2 years you developed a pre-existing condition, that'll be covered forever. The problem is that when you try to change from one company to another, and obviously premiums are going up, it's a fact, and that if you try to go to another health insurance policy, they will not cover that pre-existing condition, because again, you have to do that medical questionnaire. And the same as you can upgrade the level of coverage or downgrade only on the yearly renewal. What I've heard here, also a bit of advice, when people are going to their residency appointment here in Portugal, and they're asked that they provide a health insurance policy. It's a feedback from my clients over the last few months, especially last 1 or 2 years, mainly a big tackle on that is that you should get your health insurance policy with yearly payments or minimum 6 months payments, because with the month-to-month payments, and this has happened to me before, and this is why the small loophole that was created in the system, and the government is trying to battle this, is that people would do a health insurance policy with me, take the lowest possible policy for the appointment, and then after they pass on the appointment, and after 1 month they cancel the direct debit. So to ensure that, because meanwhile the clients or a citizen is in that time scale where they don't have public health system yet access to it, so they need to have a private health policy provided to the government here. So to avoid that, what they're doing is that they're basically saying that they have to have at least 6 or 1 month policy paid to prove that they have coverage for that.
Okay. If an expat needs emergency treatment, can they go directly to a private hospital, or must they go through the public system first?
Depends on your definition of an emergency health issue. If you're involved in an accident or you have a health issue at home and you call the paramedics, in Portugal it's what we call the 112 line compared to 911 back home, for example, automatically an ambulance is sent, and you always go to the public system. Always, yes, there. Unless you can go in your own vehicle, then that's different, where you can go to a private hospital and use your private health insurance. But then with something, a life riskier situation, you're always taken to a public hospital, always.
Okay. What happens if an expat travels outside Portugal?
My advice is getting a travel insurance. Some health insurance companies will give you a little bit of coverage when you're outside of Portugal. But what happens? That coverage is always dependent on a pre-authorization from the insurance company, and they can eventually decline it. So it's one of those coverages not worth looking into it or relying on it. Just get a travel insurance policy. A travel insurance policy is made or concepted in a way that you can just easily use it abroad. In terms of travel insurance, normally here most we can get is around 50,000 euros medical for medical issues, and then the way it works is that when you're on a trip and you need to go to a doctor, something basic you can pay out of your pocket, they'll refund you. If not, something more comprehensive, you call their helpline or an email. They have an emergency email. You identify yourself, the policy number, and then travel insurance will then take care of it from there with the clinic or the hospital where you're at traveling to. So it's better always getting a travel insurance policy. It's the best solution for the situation where you're at was you're traveling. That's why we call it a travel insurance. Health insurance works well here in Portugal, and then normally the health insurance companies have a network of a few clinics and hospitals in Spain. That's also because obviously we know Spain and Portugal work very tight in one with the other. There's a good relations between them, so they'll work here, and then in some specific hospitals in Spain where you can just walk in with your policy and work straight away. Apart from that, always get travel insurance.
Does a Portuguese health insurance policy cover treatment abroad?
Treatments abroad, depending on the type of policy you're getting, could eventually be treated abroad. How does that work? When I was a little while ago giving price, and I was saying that the price included 1 million hospitalization, 5,000 doctor's appointment and medical exams, plus 1 million critical illness, serious illness. This 1 million euro coverage that a lot of insurance companies, health insurance companies give, is precisely for that. It's coverage abroad. But the way it works is not where the client or the patient chooses. Let's imagine I'm diagnosed, I have a health insurance policy, I took a top coverage and I have this 1 million euro serious illness, critical illness. I'm diagnosed with cancer again. I can use in this case, 1 million hospitalization, or whatever coverage you have for hospitalization will cover my cancer treatment in Portugal in a private hospital. But I feel that the treatments aren't being efficient, things aren't going well, and they're not able to source or tackle the illness correctly. This 1 million euro coverage jumps in. You contact the insurance company, they get a team of doctors to analyze your case, your exams, everything that's going on, and then they're going to study your case. With a few days, they reach a conclusion, okay, for this type of cancer or tumor or this rare illness, we found a good clinic or a good hospital in the US.
They direct you to the...
Correct, in England, in Belgium, or in Asia, and they'll direct you there. And then this 1 million euros is precisely used for this critical illness. Okay. And that even includes normally 2 plane tickets for yourself and someone else to come with you, and they'll give you some allowance for a hotel stay for your family member to be with you while you're being treated abroad. So that's the way it works. They'll treat you abroad, but they'll tell you where you go.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes, the truth is, this coverage is good, don't get me wrong, but in practice, this 1 million euros, a lot of times when you reach this point, we've had it, unfortunately, 2 or 3 cases, the patient will probably already be desperate in a very fragile situation where probably there's not much more to be done, unfortunately.
Right.
And we had a case here at the office about 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was around 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a very tough cancer. Really, not much more was to be done by the time it was discovered. They
Yeah.
found a clinic in Washington with a revolutionary treatment that could eventually save.
Ah,
But the patient was so weak. He knew nothing more can be done, and his family said, "You know what? It's not worth going. It was authorized, the treatment." They said, "But what's the point going there?
yeah.
Let's see if they can do a miracle." But at that time, said, "I'd rather stay here and pass away close to my family." So this
Yeah,
coverage
yeah,
of
yeah.
1 million exists, but then in practice, when people go to activate it, they're really in a very desperate situation, and sometimes people are not willing to travel even more and very weak of their health to try and save their life. A lot of times, it's a
Yeah, yeah,
decision
yeah.
people will take.
Yeah, that's a reality. Yeah, yeah,
It's
sure.
the reality. I mean, I like to be realistic.
Yeah.
And, people know that I'm very realistic with things and practical. This coverage is good. It's true. But then people say, well, that's a big risk for the insurance company to offer 1 million euros of coverage.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
in which situations will someone
Yeah.
be willing to do it? Because this is
Yeah.
only very critical illness. And even on this top line, I was saying of 1 million hospitalization per year. Even that.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible for you to spend 1 million here in a
Yeah.
Portuguese private health unless you something really, really sick. So I mean, it's a comprehensive plan.
Yeah, right. Um, how does a reimbursement system work with private health insurance in Portugal?
It depends what policy you're taking, but standard wise, you're looking at a reimbursement of 35 to 50% of your expense when you go to see a doctor. For example, an appointment, or depending on the exams, how much it is. That as long as if they're outside the network, obviously, because when you're inside the network, you have a co-payment always. You pay the co-payment and that's it. When it's outside of the network, you pay fully out of your pocket, and you send that expense over to the insurance company, and they refund you. That's the way it works.
Okay. Limits on how many medical consultations you can have per year.
No, normally what we're speaking in terms of limitations is you have an allowance per year. As I was mentioning, 1 million, for example, on that plan as a reference, 1 million per year for hospitalization, 5,000 euros per year for doctor's appointments. Let's be a bit practical here. For example, you go to a doctor's appointment, and if you were to walk in without a health insurance, that appointment would, for example, cost you 80 euros. You have a co-payment of, let's say, 22 euros. The others, roughly 60 or 58 euros, comes out of this annual allowance of 5,000 euros. That's the way it works. Normally, the limitations put here in terms of the number of consultations is applied to normally two sectors: physiotherapy, the session sometimes around 15 to 20 sessions, and if you're looking for a therapist, a psychiatrist or a therapist, normally in that case they'll also limit you a little bit to sometimes 10 to 15 euros per session. But apart from that, there's no limit. Your limit is based on the expense, the allowance they stipulate you have per year. What if I can give an advice here is that two things. Don't be shy to ask for a health insurance quote. I mean, health insurance quote is fairly simple to do. I just need literally the age of the person, and I can do it quickly and send it over. And also here, people ask me, well, I send normally 3 options here, 3 levels of coverage, something basic, middle option, and a high option. They say, well, what should I take? The advice I give is you should always take what you can afford. I've seen cases of people say, well, I'm healthy, and this is, it's always a bit of sounds something like a political statement. It's good to hear someone say, I'm healthy, I haven't had any health issues, but you simply don't know. Life can all of a sudden, as we say in Portuguese, pull the carpet underneath your feet and you fall. All of a sudden, a serious health issue can appear, and then the coverage you took, a lower coverage, you can afford more, but you think, no, why should I be paying more or almost double the price when this is enough for me, for the legal requirements, for residency appointment, or if it's enough. The problem is that when you become sick, if you want to upgrade, you can upgrade only on the yearly renewal, but you have to do a new medical questionnaire, and then you're stuck. So if you can afford a higher level of coverage, you should take it. Also to say that due to a bit of inflation, during COVID it was very, you can see it a lot that COVID was pushing inflation up, and now currently, due to a very high usage, a lot of people are doing private health insurance. Also, the expenses that the insurance companies are having with health insurance policies are pushing the operational part of it, so they are also forced to raise the prices. We're looking here around 6 to 10 or sometimes 15% raise yearly. It's not a standard situation, but let's say an average here, depending easily looking at 6 to 10%. Put that in. So if you're looking at your budget and you have a quotation that's, for example, 200 euros per month, and you're just on the limit of your budget, remember that next year you might be raising another, let's say, 10% and another
Yeah.
10%. So put that into it. It's not
Yeah.
like the prices are going to maintain every year.
Mhm.
There's always an adjustment made based on the high usage on your, as you become older, obviously the price raises a little bit too, so take that into mind. I've seen people having to give up health insurance policy because they cannot afford anymore. They
Yeah.
have to downgrade, so careful with that. But on the opposite, you shouldn't just take the cheapest possible policy, because if all of a sudden you have a health issue, you need to upgrade, and you're already a pre-existing condition and you're stuck. They won't cover that pre-existing condition.
Right. Yeah. Fernando, this was the interview session about the healthcare.
Thank you, Fernando, for an in-depth look at private health insurance in Portugal. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe. And if you haven't seen the first video in this series all about car and home insurance, make sure you watch up there, click the link. And of course, all Fernando's information is down below in the description and in the comments of the video. See you there!